Hello and welcome to the Car Care channel, and welcome to the 600,000 mile Lexus project. Some of you have mentioned we have given up on the project, or we've reached the end and it got done with. That is anything but the truth. If anything, we are just getting started. For example, in today's video, we are going to total this car. And by total this car is the stuff that you see on this table, this transmission, these two catalytic converters, and the mount, equal more than the price we paid for this car, but we are completely committed, and this is just touching the surface of what we want to do to this car, leading up to the detail and the body. In today's video, I would like to change the aging transmission. Unfortunately, we cannot get a new one, so we got a used one. Two catalytic converters are gone, so we're going to replace those as well, and a lot of odds and ends in between. Let's get to work, and you'll see what we're going to do here. Okay, let us start. I'm a little sad for this transmission, but I think it'll be okay, especially this completely, it's actually, it has thread. Or are we just spinning? The drain plug is completely just stripped. It just turns, oh, there we go. That is what I call 600,000 mile fluid. It have seen better days. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this a little differently. I have to drop the exhaust, and the exhaust, believe it or not, even though this is not a rusty car, some of these bolts are completely gone, and there's actually a bracket missing here. It's on order. So we're going to put you on a small time lapses, and we'll talk about the progress as we go. So basically what we have to do is remove the exhaust completely. I'm going to remove it in one piece because knowing LSs, that muffler will never come apart. And then we will remove the drive shaft and all the heat shields that we need to get out of the way to remove the drive shaft. And then we'll catch you guys back up about the plan of removing this 600,000 mile transmissions, which has been out before, I think for a rear main seal. And let's see what surprises we find. I hope none, but this fluid smells really bad. It smells completely burned. It's not really black, but it's just a color I've never seen on a transmission. The color of retirement, I suppose. Let's get to work. Let's start by removing the exhaust, which was very scary because this exhaust is the original exhaust of this car and has 600,000 miles. Even though this is not a rusty car, still, it was a little nerve-wracking because you're removing it in one piece and you're putting a lot of strain in some of the joints. At any given moment, something could snap, and this exhaust is extremely expensive for this car. And as you'll find out later, we did have an incident. And then, of course, the LS Special, the rear hangers are really annoying, and here goes the exhaust in one piece. Tried to be as careful as possible with it. Then we start some of the covers, the drive shaft. The drive shaft is interesting in this, kind of unique to Toyota land and Lexus land for the rear-wheel drive configuration. Unlike the trucks, this has flex discs, which are pretty interesting to remove, but we got it. We're making slow but steady progress. Looks like this drive shaft has been out before because the shims were not installed right. Maybe that's why we have some vibration. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then some odds and ends, like the shift rod for the shifter comes off. That was pretty interesting for the LS. It's different than, it's not a cable. And then other odds and ends, like the transmission lines, which were kind of a surprise. They really gave me a hard time to come off because they were extremely corroded. For some reason, this is not really a rusty car, but still, I guess when you drive it this much, they will corrode and they will seize up. They're really hard to remove, but slow and steady and patience with lines like this gets the job done. But then one of them completely did not cooperate, and as you'll see in a little bit, we continued to struggle, but in the end, I gave up and we just cut it. Let's talk about it. So we are going through this, and we already have casualties, unfortunately. First casualty is this line. As soon as I turned it, it just twisted the line, and it's not going to happen. So I ordered a new one. While we're at it, I ordered the second one as well. I mean, these are not expensive at all. But somebody's been here. We told you this trans was been removed, and they conveniently left one bolt out for us. Why not? One less bolt we have to take out. But the other casualty, which is a much bigger casualty, and we are definitely double totaling this car, is the drive shaft. I've been noticing a little vibration or acceleration, but it has movement inside this joint. Now, if it's a U joint, we can replace it. But this joint, I think it's just worn out, basically. And like you feel there's a movement here. And the other thing is this center support bearing have seen better days. The flex discs have seen better days. And here's the best part. I priced out the flex discs and the center support bearing. They're more expensive than the entire drive shaft with a center support bearing with the flex discs. So that's Lexus for you. So here is the problem. Here's where I'd like you to really send us best wishes. There's only one drive shaft available in the entire, not country, in the world, according to Lexus's database. I guess there's not enough people with a brain that buy this very expensive drive shaft, brand new from Lexus. There's only one left for us. It is in Canada, so I just ordered it. Hopefully we will see it in a few days, but here's what we have left, and we're gonna put you guys back on the time lapse until we're ready to kind of pull the trans out. Everything else is going pretty smoothly. Lots of oil. We are replacing this mount. Looks like it's been replaced at some point, unknown. We're here, it's not an expensive mount, we're just gonna replace it. But what we have left is the torque converter bolts, which are right here in the front, and then the wire harness, which wraps around the transmission. I think we're gonna have to lower it a little bit to reach it. And then lots of bell housing bolts. Is actually a pretty small transmission, by the way. And then hopefully, it'll come out, and then it will sing a very happy song for the 600,000 mile transmission, celebrating its retirement. Let's get back to work. So we start by removing the torque converter bolts, which the LS, just like other Toyota and Lexus models, they have a locating bolt, which is actually one different color bolt that has a collar. So when you go to install them, this one kind of centers the torque converter to the flywheel, so you can tighten bolt by bolt. Some other manufacturers actually don't have this, so you have to start one bolt, not tighten it, rotate it, start all the bolts, then start tightening it. Otherwise, they won't line up. That's kind of something nice with Toyota they do. It's a little bit of a tight space here because you got the subframe in the way, but it was not bad. You got to just turn the engine, hold it, loosen it. These were tight because they usually have thread lock, which is not super tight, but it kind of takes a long time because you got to ratchet the bolt all the way and you don't really have space to grab the bolt and do it by hand. Not too bad. And then we kind of got some more odds and ends, and the wire harness, you cannot get to it when the trans is all the way up. It's really tight in the tunnel. So we just lift the trans, get the mount down, kind of lower the trans a little bit so you can reach the harness. The LS has one of the easiest harnesses. Like if you go to something like the trucks, Tundra, Sequoia, whatnot, it'll be very difficult because you have the transfer case. That has a lot more wires and switches and whatnot. This was a very simplistic harness. All the like bracketry and all the little connections, they were all intact, which is pretty cool to see it at this miles. It was all working good. Then the bell housing bolts were extremely over tight. They actually do not need to be that tight, because what locates the transmission in its place is the dowel pins. The transmission has rotational force, not really something pushing it back when it's sitting in the car. And what holds it from that rotational torque is the dowel pins. So these don't need to be this tight. They're extremely tight, but we got them. It's just you get a very long extension, very easy access on this one, because, you know, it's like I told you, it's not a big transmission. It was a surprise. It's a very small transmission, actually. But everything was going smoothly. I actually filmed the removal of the transmission live. So we're strapping our trans down. Let's go to the live video and pull this transmission out. So we are almost ready to retire this guy, which I just realized this strap keeps getting loose. We have a small situation. I don't know if you picked it up on the time lapse. The dipstick for the transmission, part of it is on the oil pan here and trans pan, and then another part it goes up, and the bolts are potentially rounded off, so I couldn't really get the top part. We're still attached to it. I'm hoping that once we separate the transmission just enough, we can lower it down and it'll detach. And emphasis on the word hoping. Let's see what happens here. Let's try to get this guy to his retirement. Torque converter got stuck. That's the first problem. It's a very blue torque converter, and it doesn't want to come off. There it is. He's out. The trans has a wild angle, and that's why we're having issues with the torque converter. Torque converter is out, and it's out of its place, so it's going to dribble all over the place. And let's lower everything. All right, I think we have separation. And we have separation from the dipstick. Yes, we do. We are in good shape, hopefully. Make sure this harness doesn't get damaged here. Okay. Are you ready to pull the 600,000 mile transmissions? Although I might have some news for you pretty soon here. Let's see. Well, whatever is still connected can sing soprano, because it's out. Is this the original transmission to this car? That's what I'm really having doubts about, honestly, because the torque converter is extremely blue, and it's really not giving me the vibes of OEM. Do you see this blue torque converter, which now doesn't want to go back in? This is giving me vibes of I am an aftermarket torque converter. But I wonder if they just replaced it or replaced the whole trans. There's a way to find out, which is underneath this bundle of oil. Let me wipe this down and we can read the last 8 of the VIN number, and that'll really tell us if this is a true 600,000 mile transmission or not. I have excellent news. This is the original transmission to this car. And looking at the sealer and looking at everything, I don't think this transmission has ever been opened. So this will make for a very interesting video if you guys vote for it, which you can do that in the comments, because this transmission is not going anywhere but retirement. Usually when you get a used transmission, you have to send the core back. I don't think we want to send this core back now, do we? We're going to keep this, and if time allows, one day, maybe when we're done with the car as a homage to it, we will take it apart and see how does it look on the inside. I mean, this is original. I have my doubts about this torque converter being this very not beautiful blue. I think this has been painted, potentially replaced, which is understandable. But something else that I noticed while we were doing this, that's the transmission mount, or for a more correct technical term, the no transmission mount. This was not doing anything. Of course, we're replacing it, but yeah, this was completely broken. So here is the plan from here. Another thing I noticed is the vent is different on this transmission than the one we got, which I'm going to have to investigate into that a little bit. But so far so good. We only have this casualty, which this line twisted, so I already ordered that. It started coming off this, and I have no space to put a wrench here. So this was a casualty. I already have a line on order, but this is not going to be done because we have to get the drive shaft, and in order to get the drive shaft, we have to wait a few days. So we're going to start kind of investigating. I want to look at the rear main seal, make sure that's not leaking. If it's not, I know it's been replaced, and actually dug a little bit in the history. This was replaced at a dealership right around 500,000 miles. So this doesn't have a lot of miles on it. So if it's not leaking, we're going to leave it alone until one day we have to pull the engine for something, then we replace it. But let's look into it, see if it's leaking or it's good. Okay, so change of plans. We're gonna get as far as we can today, and then we'll wait for the parts. I'm gonna take that plate off and clean it up. And this oil pan is also stripped, so we actually have a new oil pan on standby. If we're gonna take it out to reseal it, might as well put a new one because I don't like the feeling of this. This oil probably has just under 3,000 miles on it. It does look pretty dark, but what are you gonna do? We're gonna drain it so we can pull that plate off. Sometimes oil level will be up to this point and you're gonna start dribbling all over the place. So let's remove this plate and we'll see how things look behind it. Because I don't think, by looking at the sealers coming off, I think they just replaced the rear main. They didn't really pop this plate out, which they should have. Okay, let's see what we got. Here it is. Very ugly. This engine, we've looked inside of it before. It's not the cleanest in the world, but again, it has 600,000 miles. So, and this is definitely original sealer. Yeah, this has never been off. This is like rocks falling off. This bottom one's been done. You see how this one is soft, but this cover has, what have we here? You guys see that on camera? What have we here? Oh, chunk of sludge. Well, that's not good. Well, I guess doing this was not a bad idea after all. Well, something interesting about the UZ series engine, and for reasons unknown, there is an O-ring here. I don't think any other Toyota engine has an O-ring here where the plate for the rear main is. I'm trying to clean the sealer. I just can't. Even falls in the oil pan. I'm not worried. We're going to take this down anyways. So we're pretty much as far as we're going to get here. We're going to give this a good clean, and the other side as well. Try to get some of this varnish off. Pointless, but while we're here, why not? So we got the oily mess of a transmission out. It is the original transmission. Unfortunately, and it is my fault. I thought I ordered a rear main seal just to have it in hand in case, but that was not the case. So we're gonna have to stop this episode right here. Here's the plan for the next one. Of course, finish the transmission. Wish us luck that we get that one remaining drive shaft in the continent, I guess. This is the one that's coming from Canada. I hope it is intact, because usually when you have a last one, is it a damaged one that nobody wants? We'll find out, but we have still the transmission to finish. We still have to do the upper and lower oil pan. And then after that, we're gonna wash our hands really well, leading up to the video that we have been working on a lot in the background. The detailing video and fixing the interior, because that's the most important thing for me. This car really doesn't smell good. Seats are ripped, everything just looks like a giant mess. Per your recommendations, we actually teamed up with Chicago Auto Pros. Stay tuned for that. They have a video already shot of the car. You're gonna see that progress somewhere in the middle of August. We're filming this in July right here, but you will see that, and it will be something of a guarantee. It will be the craziest detail video you will ever see done to a car, period, on YouTube. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day. I'm gonna replace this mount, what I call the Bluetooth mount. Apparently, I can't install a cat. I'll install this one right the first time. Does it start?